من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع لذنوبنا وتبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. وفقنا الله وإياكم بعلم وعمل صالح إن شاء الله. أما بعد، فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإلى ثمود أخاهم صالحا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Usually during Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, there is a specific salah that we all engage in the morning. And part of the salah is that one should recite. It is a recommendation to recite Surah Ash-Shams. And you find that within Surah Ash-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to speak about the story of Nabi Saleh alayhi salam and his interactions with the people of Thamud. So of course, having just passed the day of Eid, I thought it is best to speak about Nabi Saleh and the story of Nabi Saleh alayhi salam. You find that the story of Nabi Saleh is a very short one, yet the messages derived and extracted from this story are great. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He does in His wisdom is that He fragments the story of Nabi Saleh in different areas of the Holy Quran. In Surah Al-A'raf, in Surah Ash-Shams, in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, and so on and so forth. But when you collate all of these verses together, you get a beautiful story from it. They say that Nabi Saleh alayhi salam was born in a community that went by the name of Thamud. Now the community of Thamud were great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points to the fact that their nation that existed thousands of years ago, they had access to certain things that even today we don't have access to. In terms of technology, the amount of technology that we have access to today is unbelievable. But Thamud and Al Thamud, the way they used to engage and the way they used to live their lives in terms of the standard of living and the quality of life, the Quran tells us that they used to have access to technology which even we don't have access to. In which way? They say that the people of Thamud used to live in the mountains or within the mountains. And the place or the location that they used to live in went by the name of Hijr. Now what they used to do is they used to carve their homes from the mountain rocks. So the whole nation used to live within the mountains, within the hearts of the mountains. Not only did they carve their homes from mountains, but they used to have channels within the mountains itself. This is how much power they used to have and the technology that they had access to, that even today we don't have access to certain tools and instruments to carve things from the rocks of the mountains. And the rocks of the mountains are not like the rocks that you would find in the parks and on the roads. They're far greater and stronger and more dense. Despite the fact they used to live within the mountains. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also points out to the fact that now the environment that they used to live in, it was surrounded by many beauties. It was very beautiful scenery. It was surrounded by different waters and streams. And of course, the water of the mountains is much purer. All of the bottled water that we get today is all from the mountains. So the water was pure, the land was fertile. They used to have many fruits, many different vegetations growing. The land was extremely fertile. They used to produce a lot. The narrations even go on to explain that the debris that they used to collect from carving homes from the rocks of the mountains, they used to build temples, and they used to build statues, and they used to build, for example, certain designs And it was a great, strong civilization, something to be very much proud of. At the same time, despite how much strength they used to have as a nation, they were also very arrogant. Nabi Saleh alayhi salam was born in that community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the verse of the Holy Quran says, وَإِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ, that He chose Saleh and He sent him to his community. It's a beautiful point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picks someone from their own community and appoints him as a prophet. Allah doesn't send someone from outside, doesn't send someone from a different continent to go into different lands and serve as a prophet or a messenger. No, there is a community and Allah chooses from within them a prophet. هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. That indeed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala, was chosen as a prophet from amongst them, from the people of Quraysh. He wasn't a stranger. Why is that the case? It is so that the people accept the message. If a stranger had come towards them and said, I am a prophet of God, then they had every excuse to say, look, you're a stranger, we don't know you. We don't know your reputation, you don't know our culture and our language and our way of life, our disciplines, our principles. We won't listen to you. And this is a strong argument. So Allah makes it a point to choose a prophet from amongst them. They say that when he reached the age of 16, he was chosen or he was inaugurated with prophethood. So he then came towards the people and he began engaging the teachings of Tawheed, engaging the teachings of Nabuwah and Ma'ad, the hereafter. Now this hurt the people very much because Nabi Saleh alayhi salam was a protege. He was a young man, but he was seen as a protege and he was very promising. They saw that this person from a very young age, he will grow up and he will be a leader within our communities, that he will lead us one day. And this is the hope that they used to have. And the ayah of the Holy Quran highlights this. So Nabi Saleh grew up from amongst them and they had high hopes that he will be very promising. He will have a very promising position within the communities in the future. But you find that yes, on the one hand, Nabi Saleh alayhi salam did become a leader. He became a leader of the society, but not according to their own expectations. He became a leader in the sense that he was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was completely in contrary to what they had expected. So they were very saddened and grieved because of this. They used to come towards him and they used to say that you had a very promising future. We had a lot of hopes for you, but now you've turned against us. Nabi Saleh alayhi salam would come towards them and he would say to them, worship one God because there is no God except Him. And then he would say to him, هُوَ أَنْشَأَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ, that Allah is someone who has created you from the earth. وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا, and He has given you the ability to live within it. We all live on the earth, we've been created from it and we live on it. But what's different about the companions of Saleh alayhi salam, the people of Thamud, is the fact that they used to live within the mountains, which is very abnormal. Even in this day and age, we don't see people living within the mountains. فَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ, because of these ni'mat that Allah has given you, turn to Him in istighfar, ثُمَّ تُوبُوا إِلَيْهِ, and seek repentance from Him. إِنَّ رَبِّي قَرِيبٌ مُجِيبٌ. It's a very beautiful point that here Saleh mentions. One of the reasons why the people of Thamud rejected in the God of Saleh alayhi salam was that they used to come forward and they used to say to him, Saleh, you speak about a God who is powerful. And there is no existence in this earth that is as powerful as what you've described. They couldn't understand that Allah could be that powerful. Someone who creates everything from nothing, how is that even a possibility? Someone who, for example, is extremely powerful but cannot be seen. Someone who is very close to us than our own jugular veins but cannot be seen. Someone who hears us, even the whispers or even the thoughts in our mind, but cannot be seen. They said, how is this even possible? One of the reasons why people constantly referred back to idol worship was because they could not understand the power and the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For them, worshipping an idol made sense, and it was far more easier than worshipping something that you cannot see or feel or hear. And so this is the reason why every nation would constantly go back to idol worship. So this is the argument I used to give to Nabi Saleh. The God that you speak about, we cannot see Him. If we cannot see Him, it means that He's very far. And if He's very far, then He cannot hear us and our hajats. So Nabi Saleh would reiterate and would reinforce the idea that my God, that Allah is indeed Qareeb, that He is near and He is not far. Then the verse continues. The verse says, قَالُوا يَا صَالِحْ قَدْ كُنْتَ فِينَا مَرْجُوًا قَبْلَ هَذَا. He said, we had a lot of hopes for you to grow up and to lead us as a community. But at the end of the day, you turned against us and you tell us to stop worshipping idols. And the practices of our forefathers, and this is something that we cannot do. Besides, you explaining to us the different concepts of Tawheed, لَفِي شَكٌّ مِمَّا تُدْعُونَ. It says we have great doubt in what you're telling us. Saleh would reply to them. He says, يَا قَوْمِ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِن كُنْتُ عَلَى بَيِّنَةٍ مِّن رَبِّي. He says, look, I've come to you as a prophet, but I've also brought evidences that I am a prophet of God. The Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not just come to the people and say, I am a prophet of God, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would have evidences to reinforce this message. What evidence did Saleh alayhi salam have? He had the power of miracles. The Quran doesn't tell us what miracles Saleh had, but we know for a fact that he had many different variations of miracles. And he would perform these miracles and he would attract some of the people. Now the narrations say that some from amongst the people of Thamud would follow Saleh, but the majority left him and they turned away from him. Other areas of the Holy Quran explain different dialogues between him and his people. At one point, his people came towards him, he's propagating the message of Tawheed. His people came towards him and said that, Saleh, the words that you speak tell us that you are bewitched, that someone has done some black magic on you, because these words are not normal. These are the words of the one who is bewitched. In other areas of the Holy Quran, they came towards him and they rejected his message completely, simply because they could not understand resurrection. In Surah Al-Yasin, we recite the verses right towards the end of the surah. How will Allah revive us when we are dust? When our bones wither away 6 feet under? How does Allah have the power to resurrect this human being to his original state? The same argument that is provided by the Quraysh of Mecca was provided by the people of Thamud thousands of years prior. So there are different variations of reasons as to why they rejected the message of Saleh alayhi salam. Despite the fact, they say that Nabi Saleh alayhi salam continued to propagate the message of Islam. And again, a very small batch from amongst the people of Thamud entered the religion of Islam. What's interesting is that there's another excuse as to why they rejected the message of Saleh alayhi salam. They say a group from amongst the tribal leaders, they came towards these believers. They didn't go to Saleh, they came towards the believers. And they said, why do you believe in the message of Saleh? Do you truly believe in the message of Saleh? They said, yes, absolutely. He said, why? Because it makes sense. It makes sense to the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists and He is only one. It's something that our logic accepts to as well. And of course, the miracles that Nabi Saleh has, all of this reinforces the idea that there is only one God and He's the messenger of Allah. They responded to the believers saying, yes, but He's just a person. He's a person, He eats from what you eat, He drinks from what you drink. If you follow him, if you follow a human being like him, then indeed you will be amongst the losers. These are very powerful words. The argument that they pushed forward here was, Saleh is a human being just like you. How can he be a prophet? If Allah is truly interested in our guidance, then He would have sent down an angel, for example, to guide us. And this is beautiful because every single nation has had one complaint or another towards the message of Allah. If Allah had sent a human being, they would say, but this person is just a human being. He eats and he drinks, he sleeps, and he does all of these things that you and I do. If Allah had sent an angel, the people would have argued that, look, this person is an angel. He's ma'asum. He doesn't commit the sins that we commit. He doesn't know what it's like having desires, as angels do not have desires. So how can we follow someone who does not know how to live a life as a human being? So they would have rejected an angel if the angel was a messenger. If the messenger was someone from a different continent, again, as we mentioned, they would reject him because he is not from amongst them. And when the person is chosen from amongst them, they reject him because, for whatever reason. Just as how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was rejected by the people of Quraysh. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Nabi Saleh alayhi salam begins his prophethood at the age of 16 and he carries on until he reaches the age of 120. So for nearly 104 years, he's propagating the message of Islam. Roughly about 100 years. He becomes tired. He loses patience. He then came towards his people and he said to them, look, let's have a dialogue. Let's sit down and just finish this once and for all. They said, what do you have in mind, Ya Saleh? He said, let's have a contest. Let's see whose Lord is superior and much more powerful. Let's choose a day, let's say a week from now, we will gather together. I will come towards your gods and you come towards my gods. You call out to my God and I will call out to your God. Let's see whose gods answer. And they used to worship idols. The narrations say they used to have a temple with 70 idols. They said, look, this is a very good idea, but you better be prepared for this, Ya Saleh. Saleh said, don't worry, I'll be prepared for it. Make sure you're prepared as well. A week later, the narrations say 3 days before the appointed time, they went towards their idols. They offered some blood sacrifices, which was common in those days. Even in the time of Nabi Ibrahim, they would sacrifice sons and daughters, the firstborns, towards their idols. They would engage in blood sacrifices. They would give food and drink towards their idols to try and get the idols prepared, their gods prepared. On the day of the appointment, Nabi Saleh alayhi salam comes towards them. He enters their temple, he comes towards the biggest idol. He turns towards the companions and he says, well, what's the name of this idol? They said, the idol is called this and this. And then he calls out, he says, oh idol, it's me, Saleh, talking to you. He turns back to the companions, he says, there's something wrong with the idol. He doesn't respond. Maybe he can't hear me, maybe he can't talk. They said, no, talk to him louder. Again, he tries, he does not see an answer from the idol. He turns to them, he says, look, there's something wrong with the idol. He can't see, maybe he cannot see, maybe he cannot speak, maybe he cannot even hear my voice. They said, Saleh, turn to the other idols, speak to the other idols. So he begins to speak to all of the idols, one after the other. When he begins to speak to all of the different idols, again, no response. So he turns back to the people and he says, look, there's no response from these idols. They say, Saleh, give us some private moments with our idols. So they say the leaders, the scholars, they came towards their idols, they begged. They said, you're making us look bad. You need to answer to Saleh alayhi salam. Otherwise, we will lose this contest. Despite the fact the narration says for the whole day, Saleh tries again and again and again. Towards the end of the day, he grows very tired. He says to them, look, I've been calling out to your Lord's not been answering. Why don't you call out to my Lord and then see if my Lord answers? So the people of Thamud, they say they appointed 70 scholars from amongst them. And these 70 scholars were happy to represent the people of Thamud. So they came towards Saleh. They had a little congregation amongst them and they had a specific hajat. When Saleh came towards them, he said, is there something that you want from my God? They said, yes. He says, what is it? They said, Saleh, do you see that rock over there between the mountains? He says, yes. He says, we want you to allow or let your God come out, allow a camel to come forward from that rock, from within the depths of the rock, like a boulder. But not just an ordinary camel, a rare breed of a camel. A camel with red fur, red coat, strong, healthy, a female camel, naqatullah, a female camel who is pregnant. When she then emerges from the rock, she needs to give birth to a baby camel, a calf. He says, is that it? He says, Saleh, can you do that? Saleh says, look, I can't do that, but my Lord can definitely do that because this is not an impossibility for my Lord. He says, go on then. They say, the narrations say that there was a loud thundersome sound, a very deafening sound, very loud deafening sound. All of a sudden the boulder cracked and a camel emerged from it. At this moment in time, they were absolutely shocked as to what they were witnessing. The camel came forth from the boulder, it was pregnant, it laid on the ground, it gave birth to a calf. When it gave birth to a calf, the narrations say that this baby camel began to walk in a matter of minutes, and then it began to drink the milk from its mother. When they witnessed this, they were absolutely shocked and they were stunned. Saleh tells them, is there anything else you want to ask from my Lord? They said, no, I think this is sufficient for the moment. We'll go back to our people and we will tell them what we've seen and witnessed. They will indeed believe in your message now. They went back, they told the people, And then all of a sudden you found that the people came towards the religion of Saleh alayhi salam. Now Nabi Saleh alayhi salam came towards the people and he said, look, my Lord has answered your hajat, but now there are strict conditions with regards to how you behave with this camel. They said, what do you mean? He says there are two conditions. If you defy any of these two conditions, then my Lord will punish you with a severe punishment. He says, what is the condition? He says, number one, this camel will drink from the river. So there was a nearby river. This camel will drink from the river every other day. When it drinks on that day, you have no right to take water from that river. The narrations say that every other day, the camel would drink all of the water that was there in the river until the river dried up. And then miraculously, the water would fill for the next day. So if the camel was to drink on the Monday, the people would have access to the water on a Tuesday. But if the camel drank on a Monday, it would drink all of the water and it would provide milk for every citizen within Thamud. So this was another miracle of the camel. It would drink all of the water and it would provide milk for all of the members of Thamud. And then he said the second condition is that this camel is not to be harmed. You are not to harm it in any way whatsoever. And this continued. They accepted, and this continued for a while. There were 9 deviant tribal leaders from amongst the people of Thamud. The jealousy got to them. They said, look, our power has been taken away from us and it has been given to Saleh alayhi salam. We were rich, we were famous, we were powerful. Now all of that has been taken away from us. We need to destroy his message. How do we destroy his message? We need to slaughter the camel. They say they appointed a man by the name of Qadar. Qadar was a vicious, aggressive person. He wasn't a leader, but he was a bloodthirsty person. They came to him, they appointed him as a henchman. They said, Qadar, go towards the camel and slaughter the camel. He was happy to do it. The day when the camel went towards the river, it began drinking from the water. Qadar hid behind the rocks, and then as the camel was drinking, he came behind the camel and it slit the camel's throat. The camel died. The baby camel saw this and it ran away in between the rocks of the mountains. When the camel died, all of a sudden the people saw what was happening. So they came towards Qadar. The 9 tribal leaders were there. They were happy, celebrating. The people were shocked. There was a massive commotion. What did you do? You had one job, was to keep this camel safe. And you went and you killed the camel. The people, the tribal leaders, they turned to the people, they said, look, there's 2 issues here. The first issue is, Saleh said that if we were to harm this camel, the adhab of God would fall on us. We're alive, so there is no adhab of Allah. So Saleh was a liar. Otherwise, we would have been killed immediately. The people, they said, well, hold on a second, that's the point. This camel, we were supposed to guard it and make sure that it lives. But if we were to kill it, then we would die by the adhab of Allah. And the fact that we are still alive shows that there is no God. Or Saleh's God is fake. And then they said to the people, they said, look, secondly, this naqa, this female camel belongs to Allah. It's not Saleh's property. The ayah of the Holy Quran says, naqatullah, the naqa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the female camel of Allah. If Allah truly existed, then He would have guarded and safeguarded the camel, His own property, His own camel. But because He did not save the life of His camel, His property, it shows that He does not exist. So the people, they were convinced by this argument. They say Qadar begins to butcher the camel. They create a big bonfire and they have a barbecue. They begin to eat the camel. When Saleh returns, Saleh, he sees what they did. And he is absolutely shocked. He says to them, you had one simple job to do, and that was to keep the camel safe. But you went and you slaughtered the camel. Not only that, but you ate the camel. You have 3 days. After 3 days, the adhab of Allah will fall upon you. Tomorrow, the first day, your faces will turn yellow. You see, when Allah destroys a community, He gives them warning beforehand. The adhab of Allah doesn't come spontaneously. He gives them enough time to understand what's going on and what their fate will be. On the first day, He says your faces will turn yellow. On the second day, your faces will turn red. On the third day, your faces will turn black. And then Allah will destroy you. He says before the third day, you have the chance to redeem yourselves. He says, how do we redeem ourselves? He says the baby camel. treat it the way you were supposed to treat its mother. That's it. Treat the baby camel with the same conditions the way you were supposed to treat the mother. Allah will remove this bala from you, this adab from you. On the first day, the faces turn yellow. The tribal leaders, they say, you know what? If this adab of God is true, then we need to assassinate Saleh. So there's a whole conspiration that takes place. The assassination of Saleh alayhi salam. Here there's two narrations. They came towards the house of Saleh in the middle of the night. When they came to Saleh's house in the middle of the night, the angels that were guarding the house of Saleh killed all of the assassins. The second narration says that no, the next day, the day when they planned the assassinations, their faces had turned red. When their faces turned red, they were so scared that they cancelled the whole plan. Regardless, the third day comes, their faces turn black. Then they said to themselves, you know what, we are a mighty kingdom. Let's go seek sanctuary within our homes. They all entered within the tunnels of the mountains, the fortified mountains, and they went in their own homes. They said, there is no way that the God of Saleh will be able to kill us. After the third day, Allah causes the entire mountain to be destroyed. And everyone that resided in their own homes, they were all destroyed as well. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. He says, Allah destroyed Saleh's community. Yes, the crimes were committed by a handful, but He destroyed the entire community. It's because they did not see a problem in the crimes of the few. They were all happy and they supported the crimes of the few. So Allah destroyed each and every single one of them. This is the camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was killed. Imagine the person who comes forward and kills or slaughters the nur of Ali Muhammad, especially the nur of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. Imagine the crimes committed that shakes the heart of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. The Imam alayhi salam, when he hears the cries of Aliyun al-Akbar, Aliyun al-Akbar, when he falls from his horse, he calls out to his father, Ya Abata adrikni, adrikni. The Imam alayhi salam, he mounts his horse and he begins to go towards one direction. Sakina, when she sees her father riding his horse, she begins to scream. She says, Ya Abata, why do you go in that direction? Aliyun al-Akbar, my brother is in this direction. It says, Ya Sakina, do not blame me. The thirst and the heat of Karbala have blinded me. They say that when Abu Abdullah alayhi salam carries the body of Aliyun al-Akbar back towards the tents of the women, Hamid ibn Muslim narrates, he says, I saw one woman come out of the tents. She begins to see her nephew, and Zainab begins to cry out, Wa Habiba, Wa Aliyya, Ya Nur Aina, O light of my eyes. She comes towards the body of Ali. She embraces the body of Ali. The narration says she collapses alongside the body of Ali. She cries and laments and wails. Abu Abdullah alayhi salam then comes towards Zainab. He takes hold of her hands and then he takes her back towards the tents. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة.